I know this sounds insane, but the most dangerous man in Chicago, the one they call Ravencraft, once had his whole world flipped upside down by a 7-year-old girl. It didn't happen in court. It didn't happen in war. It happened at his front door. She didn't come with guns. She came with a note. She didn't ask for money. She asked if he was her daddy. And here's the craziest part. That little girl, she was telling the truth. But the thing no one saw coming was that she wasn't just his daughter. She was a trap, and she was about to unlock a secret he buried 10 years ago. The kind of secret that gets people killed. The kind of secret that should have stayed buried. So when his henchman called him that night and said, "Boss, there's a child at the door. She says you're her daughter," he thought it was a joke. Then he saw her eyes. And the empire he built on blood and silence started to crumble. Because behind that child was someone he thought was dead. Someone who'd come back with a gun, a plan, and a grudge. Let me take you back to where it all began. Hi, my amazing friends and family. Welcome back to another story for today. If you are ready to enjoy this heartwarming story, smash the subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. I love seeing all your names and places. Also, don't forget to check out more of our interesting videos on the channel. And guess what? Tomorrow, I have got an even more exciting story to share with you that I know you'll love. Now back to the story. The phone rang at 2:11 a.m. In his world, that meant someone was dead. Or someone needed to be. He didn't flinch. Not when the man across from him was still choking on his own teeth. Not when blood trickled down the sleek glass table and dripped onto the custom Italian rug beneath their feet. The man's hands were zip-tied, one eye swollen shut. He had betrayed him, and betrayal in this building came with a receipt. The boss stood tall in a black suit that still looked perfect, even with blood sprayed across the cuff. His jaw was tight, cold, focused. A knife scar cut across the bridge of his nose like a warning sign that he had survived worse. His name? You wouldn't hear it whispered on the streets. You'd hear silence. He picked up the phone with his clean hand. Talk. A breath. Then the voice of his most trusted man, Nico. Boss. You're gonna want to come see this yourself. Silence. There's a kid here. At the door. She came with a bag. Says her name is Eva. And, Nico hesitated. She says you're her father. The word sliced through the air harder than any bullet. Father. He had heard that word before, but never aimed at him. He didn't respond. He just hung up. The man still bleeding in the chair twitched. The boss looked at him for a long second, then turned and walked out like the scene didn't exist. He washed his hands in the gold-tinted sink. The water turned pink, then clear. The soap smelled like leather and smoke. It was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that made gunmen nervous and devils lean in to listen. He stared at his own reflection in the mirror. That face had never seen fear, never softened, never cared. Until now. He dried his hands slowly. One drop of blood still clung to his ring. He wiped it off with the precision of a surgeon. Then he walked toward the hallway, each step heavy, each second slower than the last. He passed walls lined with abstract art no one understood. Security cameras blinked red above his head. His bodyguards stayed still. Their eyes followed him like shadows that could kill on command. He reached the elevator. Pressed the button. A soft ding. The doors opened. And just like that, the man who ran Chicago's underworld descended into the unknown. The hallway outside the penthouse was cold and quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a city that never slept. Lights flickered like distant stars. Traffic moved like blood through arteries. The whole world was out there. But he only saw one thing. A girl. Tiny. Still. Standing alone like a forgotten ghost in a white cotton dress. Her coat was too big. Her boots were muddy. And her eyes, God help him, her eyes were gray, exactly like his. She held a stuffed bunny in one arm and a manila envelope in the other. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just looked up at him like she already knew he was dangerous. And she wasn't scared. Not even a little. "You're him," she said quietly. "Aren't you?" He said nothing. She tilted her head like she was examining a wild animal in a cage. "You're the one from Mama's letter." His throat felt dry. He'd faced guns in his mouth. He'd watched men beg before dying. But this small voice, this girl who looked at him like she had nothing left to lose, this broke something in him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Eva." She hugged the rabbit closer. "My mama's name was Camille. She said if anything ever happened to her, I was supposed to come find you. She said you'd know what to do." His hands, which once cracked skulls like glass, suddenly felt useless. He looked down at the envelope. She held it out. "Your name is written on it," she said. "In her handwriting. I know it's real." He took it. His fingers brushed hers. So soft. So small. So alive. Back inside the penthouse, everything was still. The floor gleamed. The city lights shimmered through the windows. The pistol still sat quietly on the table, cooling. Nico stood nearby, watching like a silent bodyguard should. But his face gave away the truth. Even he didn't know what to make of this. Eva sat on the leather couch, legs swinging off the edge. She didn't touch anything. She just stared out at the skyline like she belonged here. He opened the envelope. Inside were a birth certificate, a death certificate, a stack of school papers, and one letter handwritten, folded with care. He reached for the letter first. It smelled faintly like flowers. His name was written across the top. To Jackson. That was his real name. One he hadn't heard in 10 years. Not since the last time he saw her. He opened the letter with careful fingers. "Dear Jackson, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I didn't want to die, but it came faster than I thought it would. Eva is yours. She was always yours. That night we spent together. It wasn't supposed to change my life, but it did. And I ran because I had to, because I was being hunted, because I didn't want you to die for me. But now the cancer's won. I can't protect her anymore. And you're the only person I trust to keep her safe. She's smart. She's stubborn. She's brave. She gets that from you. Don't let them find her. Not the men who followed us. Not the ones who killed my friends. Not the ones who made us run. Please, do what you do best. Protect what's yours. And Jackson, even if I never saw you again, I never stopped loving you. Always, Camille." He read the letter twice, then 3 times. The room felt hot. The air felt heavy. His heart, which had been dead for years, cracked open in silence. He looked at the birth certificate. Eva Camille Blackwell, born 7 years ago. Mother, Camille Blackwell. Father, Jackson Vale. His name was there, on paper, in ink. The man who'd erased his past, rewritten his identity, and buried all his ghosts, had just been pulled back into a life he didn't know he had. "You knew I'd come," he said. Eva nodded. "Mama said you were scary but smart. She said you wouldn't let anything happen to me." She looked at the pistol on the table. "Is that for the bad guys?" He didn't answer. "She said you used to be someone with a lot of enemies. And a lot of secrets." That much was true. Eva's eyes found his again. Same storm gray. Same fire hiding behind the calm. She also said that if you ever found out about me, you'd never let me go. He leaned forward. "You're right." He said it with no smile, no warmth, just a promise. A dangerous, quiet promise. She looked down at her rabbit. I don't have anywhere else to go. You're not going anywhere, he said. And this time it wasn't just a promise. It was a fact. Outside, Chicago kept breathing. Inside, something had shifted. The boss no longer ruled alone. Now there was a child with his blood sitting on his couch. A child who believed in him. A child who had been hunted. A child who had survived things no 7-year-old should understand. She had come carrying truth. And unknowingly, she'd brought war to his doorstep. He stood up slowly, turned to Nico. Triple security, he said. Penthouse lockdown. I want cameras running, guards awake, every hallway covered. Nico nodded once. And the girl, she stays, under my roof, under my name. From this moment on, she's mine. And just like that, the king of Chicago's underworld became something no one saw coming. Not a killer, not a boss, not a shadow in the dark, but a father. And the world had no idea what was about to come next. Because some monsters protect what they love. And Jackson Vale had just found the one thing worth burning the world for. The girl was still there, sitting on his couch. Her legs barely reached the edge. One boot tapped against the leather. Her rabbit rested in her lap like a secret. Jackson Vale didn't move. He had faced guns. He had buried traitors. He had watched cities burn from glass towers. But nothing in his life had prepared him for this. A child who carried his eyes and asked for nothing except to stay. He walked to the table, picked up his pistol, set it down gently in front of her, then sat across from her, hands folded, eyes locked on hers. She didn't flinch. She just watched him, like she was trying to figure out what kind of monster he really was. I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, she said. But Mama said you weren't really one. He nodded slowly. And what did she say about me? Eva glanced at the pistol, then back at him. She said you used to hurt people, that you were dangerous. A pause. She also said you only hurt bad people, and that you always kept your promises. He let out a quiet breath. That sounded like Camille. Always believed in the good that still might be hiding under someone's skin. Even his. What else did she tell you? She said. Eva hesitated. She said I had your eyes. That you were smart and scary and didn't need anyone. He tilted his head slightly. But you're still here. She nodded. She also said that even scary people need someone. Sometimes. His jaw tightened. This child, this small, soft thing, had just sliced into his soul like a scalpel. Nico stood near the window. His face was unreadable, but his hand rested near the gun on his hip. Eva noticed. Are all your friends carrying weapons? She asked. Because that's a lot. The silence cracked for just a second. Nico coughed into his hand, turned away quickly. Even the shadows in the room shifted awkwardly. Jackson cleared his throat. Eva, do you want something to eat? She looked at him like that was a trick question. I guess, she said. Do you have cereal? Or is this one of those kitchens that looks fancy but has nothing real inside? That earned a smirk from Nico. Jackson didn't answer. He stood, walked into the kitchen, opened a drawer, then another. Took 5 tries before he found the cereal. He poured it into a white bowl. No milk, no sugar, just flakes and silence. She sat at the counter, spoon in hand. He watched her eat. Every bite was small, careful, controlled. She didn't slurp, didn't complain. She just ate like she'd learned how to stretch food, like she didn't know when the next bowl would come. He hated that. He hated that this girl, with his blood in her veins, had learned to survive without him. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You always this calm? Eva shrugged. I had to be. Mama said panic gets you caught. Caught. He felt that word land like a knife. He looked away. For the first time in years, his thoughts drifted backward. Not to war. Not to violence. But to a woman in a blue sundress, laughing at a joke he barely remembered. Camille. It had been one night. A fundraiser gala. He'd gone to hide blood money under fake charities. She'd gone to treat patients no one cared about. He remembered her laugh. The way she poured whiskey into her coffee. The way she never asked who he was because somehow she already knew. They talked until sunrise. Then she disappeared. No number. No goodbye. Just gone. He tried to find her. But ghosts are hard to chase. Now her ghost had a voice. And that voice was sitting in his kitchen holding a spoon. Eva looked up. You're thinking about her, aren't you? He blinked. How do you know that? She tapped her temple. I know things. She pointed at the scars on his knuckles. Like, you don't work in an office. He raised one eyebrow. You're not a teacher. You're not a cop. You don't sell shoes. She ticked them off on her fingers. And you don't smile. That made him pause. You notice a lot. I'm observant, she said proudly. Also, your bodyguard flinched when I said cop. So, definitely not legal. Nico turned away again. Mama said you're the kind of man who wears a suit but doesn't trust mirrors. He didn't respond to that, because she was right. He walked over to the dining table again, sat down, looked at the envelope, then at her. Eva, I don't know what to do with you. I'm not a toy, she said. You don't have to figure me out. He chuckled. The sound startled even him. She walked over slowly, climbed up into the leather chair beside him, looked at him, long and hard, then reached out and touched his hand. The same hand that had ended lives, that had held weapons, that had written death in blood. She held it like it was safe, like it was hers now. You're not going to leave me, are you? She asked softly. No, he said without thinking. Because I don't have anyone else. I know. And you promised. He nodded. I don't break promises. She leaned her head on his arm. Just like that. No fear. No permission. Just trust. He sat there frozen. For the first time in a decade, he didn't know how to breathe. Nico cleared his throat. Boss. Jackson looked up. We're sweeping the building. Tripled the guards. Got a detail watching the elevator. Nobody gets in without a name and a reason. Good. What about the papers? Nico held up the envelope. We'll run the birth certificate, the death notice, every document. Quietly. Through my guy at City Hall. Jackson nodded. And the girl. I'm staying, Eva said before either man could speak. She looked up at Jackson. You can check whatever you want. But I'm staying. He met her eyes. Storm gray. His own. You're staying, he said quietly. That night, Jackson sat in his study. The lights were low. The curtains drawn. Eva had fallen asleep on the couch, curled up with the rabbit, still wearing her boots. He didn't have the heart to move her. He poured himself a drink. Didn't touch it. Just stared at it. His hands weren't shaking, but something inside him was. He opened a drawer, pulled out a photo. Camille, smiling, eyes shining, alive. He closed his eyes and whispered the words no one had heard him say in years. I'm sorry, not for what he'd done, but for not being there. Behind him, Eva stirred. He turned. She was still asleep, but her hand had stretched out, searching, reaching, like she wanted to know he was still there. He walked over, sat beside her, let her hand find his, and he stayed that way until morning. The morning sun crept in without asking. It spilled across the marble floor, soft and gold, touching everything like a secret. Eva was still asleep on the couch, curled up like a kitten in winter. One boot had fallen off during the night. The rabbit was tucked under her chin. And her hand was still holding his. Jackson hadn't moved. Not once. He sat in silence. Eyes open. Mind racing. No cigars. No whiskey. No voice. Just the hum of a city waking up outside. He was used to blood. Used to business. Used to betrayal. But nothing in his entire life had prepared him for the sound of a little girl breathing beside him. And needing him, the silence broke with a single voice. Came from down the hall. Sharp. Clipped. Wrapped in authority. "Oh no. What is this?" Jackson looked up. Vera had arrived. 60 years old. 6 feet tall in boots. And scarier than any hitman he had ever employed. She'd once thrown a man out of the penthouse for leaving fingerprints on a silk lampshade. Her hair was pulled back so tight it looked like a helmet. Her black gloves never came off. And her heart, buried beneath layers of iron, sarcasm, and imported perfume. She stormed in like a general entering enemy territory. "What is this child doing on the couch like a stray cat?" "She's not a stray," Jackson said calmly. "She's Eva." Vera narrowed her eyes. "Eva?" He nodded. "She's mine." Vera paused. Something flickered in her expression. It wasn't softness. Not quite. But something cracked behind the glare. "Where's her room?" "She doesn't have one. Yet." "Well, that's a crime," Vera snapped. "Children need a space. Structure. Routine. What does she eat?" "Cereal." "Cereal?" Vera repeated, disgusted. "What is she? A pigeon?" Eva stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, slow and hazy. She looked up at Jackson, then at Vera, then sat up like a soldier reporting for duty. "I don't like eggs," she said. "Or avocado, if you're about to ask." Vera stared at her. Eva stared back. Silence. Then Vera gave a sharp nod. "Fair enough." And just like that, the scariest woman in the building and the smallest made a silent treaty. An hour later, the penthouse looked different. The guest room had been cleared out. The sheets replaced with pink and white. A teddy bear the size of a beanbag chair appeared out of nowhere. Eva stood in the middle of the room holding her rabbit. "This was your guest room?" Jackson stood in the doorway. "It was. It looks like a princess lives here now." He raised one eyebrow. "You're not a princess?" "I'm more like a general who likes stickers." He almost smiled. Later that afternoon, Vera returned with 2 things. A hairbrush and a threat. "If you're going to be her father, you're going to learn how to tame that bird's nest she calls hair." Jackson frowned. "I kill people for a living, Vera." "Then this should be easy," she said, tossing him the brush like a weapon. He walked into Eva's room. She sat on the floor, surrounded by crayons and half-colored paper. He knelt behind her. "Stay still," he said. She didn't. He tried to part her hair. Fought back. The brush snagged. Pulled. Refused. "Ow," she whispered. He flinched. "Sorry." She turned and looked at him. "Have you ever done this before?" "No." "Then why are you trying now?" "Because I should have been here sooner." She went quiet, then turned around and sat perfectly still. "Okay," she said. "Try again." Took 45 minutes. 2 knots. And a lot of silent frustration. But when he finished, she looked in the mirror and grinned. "Not bad," she said. "Looks like a tornado, but like a cute one." He gave a quiet grunt. Vera peeked in. And to everyone's shock, she smiled. Just a little. That night, the city breathed louder. The wind rattled the high-glass windows. The lights in the distance blurred like dreams running from nightmares. Jackson stood in the hallway outside Eva's room. He had watched her draw. watched her eat, watched her fall asleep. But he hadn't moved. He just stood there, like a bodyguard, like a wall, like something trying to learn how to be human again. Then it happened. Screaming, raw, wild, heartbreaking. He rushed in. Eva was thrashing in her bed, eyes shut tight, fists clenched in her blanket. "No," she whimpered. "Don't take her. Don't take her." He reached her, sat beside her, touched her shoulder. "It's okay. It's me." She jolted awake. Her breath came fast. Her face was wet with tears. She looked up at him like she didn't believe he was real. He pulled her close. "I'm here." She gripped his shirt like a lifeline. "They took Mama," she whispered. "In my dream. I couldn't stop them." His throat burned. "No one's taking you," he said. "Not now. Not ever." She cried for a while, then fell asleep in his arms. He stayed there until sunrise. The next morning, Nico walked in with a folder. Jackson was in the study, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. "We got something," Nico said. Jackson raised his eyes. Nico dropped the file on the desk. Camille's documents, death certificate, hospital logs, flight manifests, and one terrifying truth. "She wasn't just sick," Nico said. "She was running." "From what?" Nico flipped the page. "From a name we've heard before. The Grigori Syndicate." Jackson's jaw locked. "They still breathing?" "Barely. But they've got reach. Camille must have crossed them. Or seen something." He stared at the papers. Then at the door to Eva's room. He stood. "Full lockdown," he said. "Bulletproof windows. Biometric access. Armed guards on the roof. Triple check everyone who walks through that lobby." Nico nodded. "You think they're after the girl?" "I think the moment they find out she exists." He paused. "They'll come." Nico's face darkened. "Then we'll be ready." That night, Jackson sat on Eva's bed. She was curled up beside him, reading a comic book. "You gonna sleep okay tonight?" he asked. She looked up. "Will you be here again?" "Every time." She nodded, then handed him the book. "Your turn to read." He looked at the page. It was about a villain with a scarred face and a dark secret. He cleared his throat and began to read. Down the hall, Vera wiped her eyes. She told no one. Jackson Vale sat at the dining table with 3 open laptops, 4 manila folders, and 1 cup of untouched coffee. On the far end of the room, Eva was doing battle with a box of crayons. She was winning. Every paper she touched turned into some kind of strange animal or robot or villain with a long, tragic backstory. "Do any of your bad guys ever survive?" he asked without looking up. She didn't pause. "They survive, but they don't forget." He raised an eyebrow. "Smart kid. And dangerous." It was Vera who first mentioned school. "This isn't a zoo," she said, arms crossed. "She needs a schedule. Somewhere to go. Somewhere to learn." "I can teach her," Jackson replied. "You teach people how to disappear, Jackson. That's not the same as fractions." He sighed. She was right. Even monsters needed math. 3 phone calls, 1 threat, 2 favors, and Eva was enrolled in the most elite private school in Chicago. Tuition? Irrelevant. Background checks? Forged. Uniform? Custom-tailored by midnight. She didn't complain once. Not about the new shoes. Not about the books. Not even about waking up early. But when he walked her to the car on her first day, she hesitated. "Will I be safe there?" He knelt beside her. "You're safer now than you've ever been." She looked at him hard. "I want you to promise." "I don't break promises." She nodded and got in. The first 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. Eva came home with paint on her sleeves, 2 new vocabulary words, and a suspicious amount of silence. She didn't talk much about the kids or the teachers, just said it's fine, and went straight to her room. On the 3rd day, Vera opened her mouth to ask how school went. Before the words could even land, the phone rang. Jackson picked it up. A voice crackled through. Tight, polite, but terrified. "Mr. Vale, we need you to come in. Immediately." The school looked like a cathedral married a museum. Long stone walls, giant iron gates, a fountain that didn't seem to like children. Jackson walked through the front doors like he owned the building, because technically one of the board members owed him. 2 security guards straightened when they saw him. One even stepped aside without blinking. He stepped into the head office and saw her, Eva, sitting in a tiny chair, arms folded, covered in mud. Her left boot was missing. Her face was calm, too calm. Across the room sat a woman with tight blonde curls, a nervous pen-tapping habit, and a smile made of glass. She stood quickly. "Mr. Vale, thank you for coming. Please sit." He didn't. "I was told there was a problem." She laughed. "Too fast. Too fake." "Well, yes. It seems there was an incident." She turned to Eva. "Would you like to explain?" Eva shrugged. "He said something about my mom, so I helped him find the mud." Jackson raised one eyebrow. "The mud? Big puddle," Eva added. "Very soft. Great for thinking." The principal cleared her throat. "Mr. Vale, your daughter. She is not expelled," he said quietly. The woman blinked. "Well, we haven't decided that just yet." He stepped closer. "You're not going to decide that." She looked around nervously, then tried again. Another student was shoved. "He's the son of a donor." Jackson nodded slowly. "And what did that donor's son say?" The principal opened her mouth, closed it again, looked at Eva. Eva answered for her. "He said my mom was probably dead because she was a drug addict." Silence. "I told him she died of cancer." He laughed. "So I made him stop laughing." She looked at Jackson. "I wasn't wrong, right?" He stared at her, and something in his chest moved. No, she wasn't wrong. Not even a little. "I see," he said. The principal tried one more time. Perhaps a suspension would give her time to reflect. Jackson smiled. And for the first time, it wasn't cold. It was worse. It was charming. Deadly charming. "Do you like your job?" he asked. The woman froze. Well, yes, of course." "Do you like your house?" Do you like that your husband comes home at night? That your kids are safe when they sleep?" Her pen dropped. He stepped closer. "She's not getting suspended. She's not getting written up. And if that donor's brat even breathes in her direction again." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The room dropped 10 degrees. He turned to Eva. "Let's go." She stood, grabbed her muddy boot from under the chair, and walked out like a queen. Outside, Nico was waiting by the car. He opened the door. Eva climbed in. Jackson followed. Once the door closed, Nico looked at them in the rearview mirror. "So," he said, "how'd it go?" Eva grinned. "Dad threatened a principal." Nico raised an eyebrow. "You went full protective mode?" Jackson adjusted his cufflinks. "It was mildly effective." "You were terrifying," Eva said proudly. He looked at her. She was smiling, not like a child who had gotten away with something, but like a girl who had just been defended, protected, seen. Back at the penthouse, Vera was waiting. She had a towel in one hand, a frown in the other. "Mud," Eva shrugged. "Therapeutic." Vera sighed. "Get in the bath before you start growing moss." Eva ran off, laughing. That night, Jackson sat alone on the balcony. The city was lit up beneath him. Alive, cold, ruthless. But behind him, in that soft pink bedroom, a girl was sleeping. And she had defended her mother's name with mud and fire. He closed his eyes. And for the first time, he didn't feel hollow. He felt like he belonged to something. Something worth fighting for. The night sky was velvet black. From the penthouse balcony, Chicago looked quiet. But Jackson Vale knew better. Nothing about this city was ever quiet. Not for long. Inside, the lights were dim. The air was soft. And for once, the monster didn't feel alone. He stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, watching headlights crawl like ants across the bridge. Behind him, Eva slept soundly, her rabbit tucked beneath her chin. Boots by the door, backpack ready for the morning. She was safe. She was happy. She was his. And he didn't know it yet. But this was the last moment of peace he'd have for a very, very long time. The next afternoon, everything cracked. Started like any other day. Karate class. Pickup time. Jackson had Nico waiting at the door, just like always. But this time, Eva never came out. The other kids poured through the glass doors laughing, shouting, throwing backpacks. But Eva didn't walk through. Jackson's phone rang 5 minutes later. Nico's voice was sharp, strained. "She's not here." Jackson froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's not in the building. I mean, her instructor said she went to the bathroom 10 minutes before class ended and never came back. I mean, her bag is still in her locker and her rabbit is gone." Silence. Then Jackson whispered one word. "Lockdown." The penthouse turned into a fortress. Security doors sealed. Elevator frozen. Bodyguards posted at every floor. Nico returned. Blood on his knuckles. Panic under his skin. Jackson was already waiting in the study. No expression. No movement. Just a man carved from fury. Nico dropped a flash drive on the table. They sent a video. Jackson picked it up. Slid it into the laptop. The screen flickered, then showed the worst thing he'd ever seen. Eva, tied to a chair, in a dark room, her hair messy, her face bruised. 3 masked men stood behind her. One held a knife. The other held a phone. The third just stared into the lens. The voice was disguised. Low, robotic. "Mr. Vale, we have your daughter. You took something from us a long time ago. Now we take something from you. 10 million. Wire it in 24 hours. If you tell anyone, she dies." Eva looked up. Her eyes were glassy. Her lip was cut. But she spoke. Clear. Loud. Angry. "My daddy is going to find you. And when he does, you'll wish it was just money." The screen went black. Jackson didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Nico stepped back. "We don't know where they are yet, but I've already got our tech guys running facial scans. They're masked, but one's wearing a necklace we might trace." Still, Jackson said nothing. Nico looked at him carefully. "Boss, this could be a trap." Finally, Jackson turned. And when he did, the room shifted. His eyes weren't human anymore. They were something older, something colder, something sharp enough to tear through steel. "It is a trap," he said, "and we're going to spring it." He stood, walked to the wall, pressed a button hidden behind a painting. Panel slid open. Inside there was a case. Locked, black, heavy. He opened it. Inside sat a gun. Polished, loaded, waiting. He took it without hesitation. Then turned to Nico. "Call everyone. Now." One by one they came. Old enemies. Old allies. Men who owed him favors. Men who feared him. The Crimson Serpent crew. The East River Council. The driver who once smuggled diamonds inside fish. Even the woman who ran the Russian black market out of a frozen meat warehouse. They all came, because Jackson Vale had called. And when he called, you came armed. In the war room, maps were spread out, photos printed, buildings circled, timelines marked. Jackson stood in the middle of it all. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up, his voice calm. Search every dock, every basement, every shell company tied to Grigori. You think it's them? Someone asked. He nodded. They want revenge. You think they'll kill her? He turned slowly. If they touch her, I'll wipe their bloodline off the face of the earth. Silence. Then movement. Orders. Weapons. Motion. The city began to burn behind the scenes. Midnight hit. Jackson hadn't slept, hadn't sat, hadn't stopped. Nico walked in with a tablet. We traced the necklace, he said. Belongs to a street-level runner named Dima. Used to work out of the lower west docks. Alive. Maybe. Jackson grabbed his coat. I'll go. Nico blinked. You're going personally? I'm not sending anyone to get her. You're walking into a trap. I don't care. At the docks, the air was thick with smoke. The buildings leaned like drunks. Metal doors rattled in the wind. The sky had turned copper. Jackson stepped through puddles in silence. Boots echoing. Gun ready. He kicked in the first door. Inside, 3 men scrambled. Only one stood a chance. Dima. Jackson reached him in seconds. Slammed him into the wall. Pressed the gun to his temple. Where is she? I don't know. Wrong answer. A fist cracked ribs. Try again. I don't have her. Another blow. Then a name. La Torre. Warehouse 39. But I swear, I don't know if she's still there. Jackson let go. Dima dropped to the ground, gasping. He never looked back. Warehouse 39. Concrete. Empty. Cold. Too quiet. Jackson entered alone. Inside there were candles. Photos on the walls. All of him. Surveillance shots. Blueprints. Even one of Eva. At the center, a phone. It rang. He answered. You're getting close, Vale. The voice was clear this time. Male. Young. Cocky. She's not here. But we wanted you to see what we see. You built your empire on fear. On death. Now you get to feel it. You took my father. I take your daughter. Click. The warehouse exploded. Fire roared. Jackson flew back into the dirt. Smoke swallowed the sky. But he was alive. Bruised. Bleeding. But breathing. And more dangerous than ever. That night, as the fire burned behind him, Jackson Vale made a promise. Not a threat. A vow. I'm going to find you, he whispered. I'm going to find her. And when I do, he didn't finish. He didn't need to, because the ground already knew what was coming. War. The sky was still bleeding fire. Smoke curled above the ruins of Warehouse 39. The ground pulsed with heat. The flames behind Jackson lit up the night like the devil had been waiting for permission. He didn't wait for the sirens. He didn't wait for backup. He turned to Nico. Pull every man we've got. I want eyes on every Grigori safehouse in the city. Nico nodded. They'll never see daylight again. Good, Jackson said, because neither will I until I bring her home. For hours later, they found the next location. Warehouse 42. No cameras. No electricity. Just concrete and shadows. But Eva's rabbit, her little stuffed rabbit, was spotted on a crate during drone surveillance. That was all Jackson needed. He strapped a knife to his ankle, loaded 2 pistols, tucked a third into his belt, and walked into hell. The front door didn't creak. Cracked. Like it knew who was coming. He stepped inside. Gun first. Heart second. The lights were flickering low. The air smelled like dust and blood. A pipe dripped slowly in the distance. He moved like water, fast, silent, cold. The first guard never saw him. One shot to the throat. No scream, no sound, just silence, falling like snow. The next hallway was longer. 6 men, 2 crouched, 3 pacing, 1 playing cards. Jackson didn't hesitate. He dropped the first 2 with clean headshots, knifed the third in the chest. The last 3 ran. Big mistake. He chased them through the corridor. Bullets danced past his face. He slid behind a crate, rolled, fired twice. 2 more bodies dropped. 1 made it to the door. Jackson caught him with a shot to the leg. The man crawled, begged, "Please, I didn't touch her. I swear." "Where is she?" "Room in the back." "Red door." Jackson raised the gun. "Wait!" 1 final shot. Then silence. He reached the red door. It was locked. He didn't care. 1 kick. Wood splintered. The door flew open. And there she was. Eva. Tied to a chair. Hands bound. Mouth taped. Eyes wide. But alive. His heart cracked and crashed and burned all at once. She looked up. And when she saw him, the fear melted. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just breathed out 1 word. "Dad." He was already moving, gun still in hand. I scanning the room. It was empty. No guards. No traps. Just Eva and the sound of her shaking breath. He dropped to his knees, ripped the tape from her mouth. Her lips were bruised, but steady. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. He cut the ropes, held her in his arms, tight, like the world was ending, because maybe it was. Then it happened. A sound. Sharp. Distant. Wrong. The far wall exploded. Concrete ripped open. Metal screamed. Jackson covered Eva with his body. Smoke flooded the room. Screams echoed. He turned, gun raised, and saw something that made his brain stop. A figure. Tall. Still. Holding a sniper rifle. The scope gleamed in the firelight. The barrel pointed down. Not at him, but past him. Then, another sound. Boots. Clicking against the ground. Calm. Controlled. Familiar. Jackson turned. And saw the ghost. Camille. Alive. She stepped through the smoke like she owned it. Leather jacket. Pistol in one hand. Eyes like thunder. She didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Didn't stop. Jackson froze. His mouth moved. But no words came out. Camille pointed the gun at him. "You need to back away," she said. He didn't move. "She's mine," he said quietly. Camille's jaw clenched. "Not tonight." Eva looked up. "Mom." Camille didn't look at her. Not yet. She kept her eyes locked on Jackson. "She's safe now. With me. You faked your death. I had to. You used her. I protected her. You sent her to me. And it worked." They stood there. 2 weapons. 2 pasts. 1 child. In the middle of it all, Eva blinked up at both of them. Then said, "Are you 2 going to kiss or kill each other?" Silence. Then Camille lowered the gun. "I didn't come here to fight." "Then why are you here?" "To finish what I started." Outside, more footsteps. More gunfire. Nico burst through the doorway. Saw Camille. Froze. "What the?" "It's her," Jackson said. Nico stared. "But she's not." Camille turned to Eva. And for the first time since walking in, she smiled. Soft. Sad. Strong. "Hey, baby." Eva jumped into her arms. And Jackson watched the moment like someone watching a dream they'd already buried. Camille kissed Eva's forehead. Then looked at Jackson. "We need to talk." He nodded. But his hand still rested on the gun. Just in case. The smoke was still rising from the broken walls. Outside, the war was slowing down. Shots came less often now. The bodies were cooling. The fire was dying. But inside Warehouse 42, everything was just starting. Jackson stared at Camille like she had walked out of a memory he never finished. Like someone had ripped a photo from a burning house and handed it back to him. She held Eva close, breathing like she hadn't done that in years. Eva didn't let go. Not for a second. Not even when Jackson tried to take a step forward. "Talk," he said, voice low. Camille finally looked at him. And when she spoke, her words were made of knives. "I had to disappear to finish what you couldn't." The ride back to the safe house was dead silent. Camille sat beside Eva in the back seat. Nico drove. Jackson stared out the window. His jaw was locked tight. His hands never left his lap. But the air around him felt like the edge of a blade. Inside the safe house, Vera waited. Her eyes widened the second she saw Camille. "Sweet mother of." Camille gave her a nod. "Still bossing people around, I see." Vera blinked twice, then said nothing. Just turned and went to make tea. Like it was all normal. Like ghosts walked through her door every day. Later, in the safe house living room, the walls heard everything. Jackson sat on one side of the long table. Camille on the other. Eva curled in a blanket between them. Too scared to sleep. Too stubborn to cry. Jackson was the first to speak. His voice was calm. But underneath, thunder. "You died. I buried you in my head. I mourned you. And you were out there, what? Playing assassin." Camille didn't flinch. "I wasn't playing." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "So that letter you left Eva? The funeral? The hospital records? All fake?" She nodded. "Every piece." "Why?" "Because I had to finish what I started." "Which was?" She leaned forward, wiping out the Grigori cartel. From the inside out. The room went cold. Jackson blinked once. "You?" "Yes. You were a nurse. I was a survivor. You had a kid. That's why I had to disappear." Eva finally spoke, voice barely a whisper. "You let me think you were dead." Camille turned to her. Tears filled her eyes. "I know. You let me cry every night for you. I know. You let me sleep with a rabbit instead of hugging you." Camille leaned in, and her voice cracked. "Because if I had stayed, you wouldn't be alive." Jackson stood up, paced once, then turned to her like a storm turning toward the sea. "How many?" Camille looked up. 68. He stopped. "What?" "I killed 68 men. In 3 years." Flashbacks came alive in her mind as she spoke. A hotel room in Serbia. Poison in a bottle of wine. A body in a bathtub. A nightclub in Budapest. Silent shots. One man never left the VIP section. A warehouse in Detroit. Gasoline. A match. 3 bodies gone before sunrise. One name at a time. One soul at a time. Until the Grigori cartel had no heirs left. Only the last 3. The ones who'd tried to take Eva. Camille's voice didn't shake anymore. "I used Eva as bait because I knew they couldn't resist. A daughter? That was leverage they couldn't ignore. And once they showed themselves." She looked up. "I'd finished the job." Jackson stared at her like he was meeting her for the first time. "That's the difference between us," he said. "You hid your monster. I built mine." Camille stood now too. They were only a table apart, but it felt like continents. "I didn't hide it. I sharpened it. You let her suffer. I kept her safe. You let her believe you were gone. I was." Eva's voice cut through the heat again. "But I wanted you." That cracked something. Camille dropped to her knees beside her, held her face gently. "I never stopped wanting you," she whispered. "I never stopped loving you." But I had to be a monster to kill the ones who wanted us dead. Eva stared at her. You should have told me. I know. You should have trusted me. I was scared. You were stronger than everyone. Camille smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. No, you are. Jackson looked away, and for the first time in a long, long time, he didn't know what to feel. Pride, anger, grief, respect. They all twisted inside him like wires. Nico stepped into the room quietly. Boss. Jackson raised his head. Nico glanced between the three of them. They found a fourth name. Someone high up in Grigori. Never went public. Real ghost type. Jackson frowned. Name? Nico paused, then looked at Camille. You tell him. Camille stood slowly, wiped her face. His name is Dmitry Alayev. Jackson froze. No. Camille nodded. He's not dead. I killed him. You missed. Silence. Camille's voice was a whisper now. He's the one who ordered Eva's abduction. The air felt heavy, like the past had walked into the room, slammed the door and sat down for a drink. Jackson's face turned to stone. You want me to let you live? Camille nodded. Yes. Why should I? Because the monster you made is the reason your daughter's still breathing. Jackson stared at her. A long, quiet beat passed. Then he walked around the table, stood in front of her, raised his hand, and gently touched her cheek. I should hate you, he said. You don't, she whispered, and she was right. He turned to Eva. Bed. I'm not tired. You need rest. I've been kidnapped. Again. He raised one eyebrow. She groaned, but stood. I'm not forgiving you yet, she told Camille. You don't have to. But I'm glad you're not dead. Me too. Eva paused at the doorway. Dad. Yes. You two are weird. Then she walked off. That night the house was still. Jackson stood outside on the terrace, staring at the city again. Camille walked up beside him. You let me live, she said. I did. Why? He didn't answer at first. Then he turned to her and spoke quietly. Because Eva already lost you once. Camille looked down, then back at him. And now? Jackson took a breath, then said it without blinking. Now we kill the man who dared to take her. The penthouse felt different now. Not quieter, not louder, just full. There were voices in the kitchen, soft footsteps in the hallway, the faint sound of laughter from a room that used to echo with silence. Camille had moved in that morning. 2 suitcases, 1 gun, no hesitation. Vera just nodded and cleared out the guest suite. Nico said nothing, but he raised an eyebrow so high it almost left his head. Jackson stood in the main hallway, watching as Camille unpacked her things like she'd never left. Eva sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting her stuffed animals into security clearance levels. Rabbit stayed at the top. Always. So, Nico whispered behind him. You two back together? Jackson didn't answer. Just saying, Nico added. Most people don't move in with their exes after a warehouse shootout. Jackson turned. Nico. Yeah. Don't die today. Copy that. The city outside was beginning to settle. Or at least pretend to. After Camille came back, the rest of the Grigori names started dropping like stones. One by one. Heads of old factions. Arms dealers. Money launderers. Lieutenants hiding in other countries. Jackson didn't ask how Camille found them. She didn't ask why he let her do it. They just moved. Together. Silently. Deadly. Efficient. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was war. And they made a perfect team. Inside the penthouse, something unexpected began to happen. Family. Dinner was no longer just steak and silence. Now there were napkins, and jokes, and vegetables nobody wanted to eat. Camille cooked sometimes. Jackson tried once. Burned the rice and the pan. Vera nearly kicked him out of his own kitchen. Eva started keeping a notebook. Not for school. For questions. Real ones. Sharp ones. One night, Jackson found her on the balcony with a pen in her mouth, flipping through blueprints of their building. He raised an eyebrow. Homework. She shook her head. Security weaknesses. He blinked. What? She pointed to the roof diagram. If I were the bad guys, I'd come in through the north vent. There's no sensor there. Jackson stared at her. She shrugged. What? You raised me for 6 weeks. Camille noticed it too. The way Eva watched people. The way she moved through a room without being seen. How she memorized faces, patterns, names. How she asked questions no kid should ask. Do silencers really work like in movies? What's the easiest place to hide a knife on your body? How long does poison take? Camille sat with her one night, brushing her hair, and asked gently, "Why do you want to know all this?" Eva turned around and said something that didn't belong in any child's mouth. "I want to know how to survive." The next day, Jackson brought in a therapist. A woman named Dr. Ray. Sharp eyes. Soft voice. Didn't blink when Jackson told her the truth. She worked with Eva 3 times a week. Not to erase the things she'd seen, but to help her carry them without breaking. Camille watched every session from the next room. Silent. Still. Wishing someone had done the same for her. Weeks passed. The city healed in pieces. The Grigori cartel fell like dominoes. Eva began sleeping through the night again. Her rabbit stayed close, but the nightmares started to fade. Camille moved into Jackson's room after midnight one night. No words, no promises, just 2 hands finding each other beneath the sheets, holding tight through the dark. And then, the dinner. It was a Saturday. Rain on the windows. Soft music in the background. Roast chicken. Red wine. Eva drank soda and spun a fork like a weapon. They were laughing about something Nico had said earlier. Then Eva went quiet. Jackson noticed first. He looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded, then put her fork down, and asked a question that froze the room. "When I grow up," her eyes flicked from him to Camille, "can I be part of this?" The music didn't stop, but everything else did. Camille set her glass down. Jackson leaned back slowly. Neither answered. Eva waited. "I mean," she added quickly, "not like now. I'm still learning. But when I'm older, when I know more, I want to help. I want to protect us too." Camille's voice came first. Soft, careful. "You don't have to become like us to stay safe." Eva tilted her head. "But what if it's already inside me?" Jackson closed his eyes. His past flashed behind them. Blood, fire, guilt, power. He opened them again, looked at his daughter, and saw it. The same fire, the same stillness, the same storm he had tried so hard to bury. After dinner, Camille found him in the study. He stood by the fireplace, drink in hand. "She meant it," she said. "I know. She's not like other kids. She never was." Camille walked over, touched his arm. "We can still steer her." He turned slowly. "And if we can't?" Camille didn't answer. She didn't need to, because they both knew the truth. Eva Vale wasn't made to be saved. She was made to survive. And someday, she just might run the empire. The city hadn't changed. Not really. The skyline still carved the sky like broken teeth. The streets still whispered secrets after midnight. The river still ran dark. But the penthouse at the top of Vale Tower? That had changed everything. Inside, there were no more ghosts, only lessons. and a girl who had stopped being a girl. Eva Vale was 16, and she didn't ask to be protected anymore. She asked to be trained. It started one quiet night in the dining room. She sat between Jackson and Camille, slicing her steak like it had personally offended her. Then she looked up, eyes sharper, voice lower. "I want in." Camille raised her brow. "In where?" "The business." Jackson's fork paused midair. "I'm not a kid anymore," Eva said. "I want to know everything. The deals, the security teams, the codes, all of it." Camille leaned back slowly. "This isn't a game, Eva. I know. This world breaks people. I've already been broken," Eva said. "Now I want to be ready." Jackson stared at her. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. And for the first time, he believed her. The training began the next day. Not with guns. Not with knives. But with books. Business ledgers. Surveillance layouts. Criminal history. Eva soaked it all in. She memorized every alias Jackson had ever used. Every crew Camille had dismantled. Every bribe, every rule, every secret knot that held the empire together. By 17, she spoke 5 languages. By 18, she could spot a tail from 4 blocks away. By 19, she didn't need protection. She became the protection. There were moments, big ones. A courier who tried to skim from deliveries. Eva caught it, fired him, quietly. A mole inside the East Wing security detail. She exposed him before Nico even noticed. And the biggest one, a power shift in the Southside Council. 3 old dogs tried to box the Vale name out of new territory. Eva walked in, alone, in black. She smiled, sat at the table, and 30 minutes later, all 3 swore loyalty. Nico couldn't stop laughing when he heard. "She's scarier than both of you combined," he said. Camille grinned. Jackson just nodded, proud, and maybe a little terrified. By 20, she had a seat at every meeting. Not in the back, not on the side, at the center. She didn't interrupt. She didn't raise her voice. She just waited, then spoke when it mattered. And every time she did, the room listened, because Eva Vale didn't speak unless it was something no one else saw coming. She became the storm before the storm, and every man in Chicago learned her name. By 25, she ran it all. The Vale Empire, every business, every shadow, every whisper that started in the dark and ended in fear. They belonged to her now. And her parents? They stepped back. Not out, never out, but back, watching, advising, proud, silent generals behind a queen made of fire. It was on a winter night when Jackson realized it. He was sitting in the same chair, wearing the same watch, in the same penthouse he once built out of blood and fear. But now, it was quiet, not empty, just peaceful. The kind of peace you earn with scars and sacrifice. Behind him, Camille was reading by the fire. In front of him, Eva stood near the window, the same spot he once stood in. Years ago, when she first walked into his life. She was dressed in black, hair pulled back, eyes burning silver in the night light. And she was on the phone, speaking softly, ordering something, securing something, fixing something, running the city. Jackson didn't say a word, just watched her, and smiled. She turned around after the call ended. "Problem in Westbrook," she said. "Handled. Almost." Jackson raised a glass. "To almost." Eva smirked, then said something that made the air shift. "You did good, Dad." His smile didn't move, but his eyes did. "Not as good as you." She walked over, kissed his cheek. "You built the empire," she whispered. "Now I'll keep it." And just like that, she was gone again, off to fix another piece of the world. Camille looked up from her book. She's you. Jackson turned. She's both of us. Camille smiled. No, she's better. That night, just after 2 a.m., the phone rang. The same phone that once made Jackson reach for a gun. The same one that shattered his life with 7 words. But this time, he didn't pick it up. Eva did. And as she answered, her voice calm, her footsteps steady, Jackson closed his eyes and remembered the first time that phone rang, the moment his empire cracked open, the night a girl showed up at his door with a note. Not for money, not for help, but to ask if he was her father. And now, she didn't need to ask anymore. She didn't need protection. She didn't need saving. Because she was the storm now. And the city, it was hers. Final line. The phone rang at 2:11 a.m. Only now it rings for her.
Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end of this story. If you enjoyed this story, I promise you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more thrilling as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.